This is the plaintiff, Dominic Tambora. He says he was forced to move out of the defendant's house, which he rented because the water smelled like rotten eggs, and the defendants never did anything to fix it. He can't believe these people are refusing to return his security deposit and is suing them here and now for the return of his $1,500. These are the defendants, Maurice Brooks and Diane Surratt. Maurice says the plaintiff's just using the well water as an excuse to break his lease. He put in a brand new reverse osmosis water filtration system the plaintiff left in the middle of his lease, and they don't have to return a penny. They're accused of being all wet.
All parties, please raise your right hands.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case on the docket. The plaintiff says he was forced to move out of the defendant's rental because the water smelled like rotten eggs, and the defendant refused to do anything about it. But the defendant says the place smells fine, and the plaintiff is just using it as an excuse to break his lease. It's the case of P.U.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mr. Tambora, you rented a single-family home from Mr. Brooks and Ms. Surratt, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And what happened?
From the beginning, there was always other problems with the electricity and other stuff, but the water was the main problem. And they kept saying they'll fix it. It was a new system, but it wasn't.
What was wrong with the water?
It was well water, and they had a filtration system that wasn't good. It wasn't good enough to filter out.
So you would. So what? How would the? So how was the water bad? How would that problem manifest itself? The water would smell. The water was discolored with rust.
It was. Yes, Your Honor. It smelled and was discolored from the beginning till when I moved out. They did install a tiny reverse osmosis filtration underneath the kitchen sink with a little tap that you can just fill up like glasses of water to drink from. It didn't filter through the whole house. It was just in the sink like a little spout that you would press. And I think the maximum it held was maybe 2 gallons, 1.5 gallons of water. And then once you ran out of that reserve filtered water underneath the sink, it took about 12, 16 hours to refill. So they didn't put a reverse osmosis system in for the whole house, just for to drink cups of water.
Okay, so let's look at some pictures here that you submitted. This is a picture of what?
The outside well water filtration system, just to show like how rusty and old the system was. It wasn't a new system, and it kept breaking. It kept stopped filtering water. Had to keep getting it repaired, fixed.
What is this a picture of? This is a picture of clean water on the right and the water that you were subjected to on the left.
Yes, Your Honor.
And so they did not return your security deposit because they say that you broke your lease. And your response to that is that this place was uninhabitable and that you couldn't stay there because of the water issue. They say you're making that up just to break your lease. You say you're not. Now, let me hear from you guys, Mr. Brooks and Ms. Surratt. Who wants to speak first?
I'll speak first. And regarding the pictures that you're showing, the first picture was actually the gauge of the well. That is not the filter or filtration system.
Okay, well, what is this that's all rusty? What's that?
That is the gauge. That's an outside gauge, and all of them, it doesn't matter in any area. After a year or so, you're going to have any well that has the gauge on it look like that.
And tell me about this, because they were texting you. I can see from the history of the text that they were complaining about this the entire time they lived there. How long were they living there?
2 months.
Right. And they complained a lot of times by text. You think they're making it up the whole 2 months, like just slowly making it up over and over?
What you're not seeing there is he's showing a jug of water that comes directly out of the tap prior to going into the system. Because I've had this tested prior to him moving in and even afterwards, and even up to a month ago, I had it retested.
Show me your tests. Right. You've had it tested by, did you submit those into evidence?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Brooks, went back to Morgan Brothers the day of the summons, and he said, I'm going to get this retested. And what they tell him to do is go get a jug of water that's outside and a jug of water that's been filtered. And that's what it looks like. The jugs that you just saw, one's filtered, one's not filtered. So we had it redone again by Morgan Brothers.
Let me ask you a question, though. While I'm looking through everybody's water tests, I found a different document, and I'm kind of curious about what this is. What is this?
Oh, I had to pay for the days that I was there before I left. It was a pay cash $400.
Right, but I don't understand. You're keeping the money based on the theory that he broke a lease, but this is a document where he agrees to pay a prorated share. He pays it because that's your signature under it. And the first paragraph says that we're all in agreement that come August 23rd will be the last day of the tenancy, and that all parties are in agreement to break our 12-month lease. Did you sign this? Is that your signature, Mr. Brooks and Ms. Surratt? Did you sign this?
We signed that to say that we wouldn't be going after him for the differences of the 12-month lease, yes.
Yeah, but you're doing that. Why are you keeping it security then? You're keeping it because you say he breached. So you're keeping it for rent, like to mitigate your damages on how you're out all this rent because he breached, except for you signed a document that says, I'm letting you out of your lease. So on what planet would you be able to keep the $1,500? If you're letting him out of the lease, which is, these are the words, all parties are in agreement to break our 12-month lease, on what premise are you keeping the $1,500? You're letting him break it. And you're looking at me and saying, I'm keeping it because he broke it. Which is it?
We're letting him break it to say that we're not going after him for the rest of the rents that he would be held accountable for.
Well, but then what is the $1,500 for other than to mitigate your damages on rent? That's the only thing you could keep it. He didn't trash a place, right? Did he trash a place?
He never looked after it. He was supposed to put salt in the machine. He never ever did. He never cut the grass. He never ever cleaned up the
You know what,
before he
folks?
left.
Yeah, you got any proof of that? You got pictures? You got anything to suggest $1,500 worth of damages? Because that's the first time you've said that. You're keeping the $1,500 according to every portion of the answer of this complaint. You have said that you're keeping it for one reason and one reason only, because he breached the lease. And I don't even know how you didn't bring this up. I just found this by accident here. It actually says they are in agreement to break our 12-month rental lease. That puts you off the hook for being punished for breaking a lease. So my verdict is for the plaintiff in the amount of the $1,500. Verdict for the plaintiff.
So it's pretty automatic, quite frankly. The plaintiff prevails. The defendants do not prevail. Let's see what they have to say about it. Mr. Brooks, Ms. Surratt, you signed an agreement. You cooked your own goose. What do you think?
Well, we signed an agreement that we wouldn't go after him for every month after. But I guess the way it's worded, she took it the other way, so nothing we can do about it.
Well, legally, it's your own fault, really, quite frankly. Live and learn the hard way. Sorry about that. He gets to keep the $1,500. You got to give it back to him. Mr. Tambora, how you feeling right now?
Hi. Much better, because they told me that they would give me back the deposit. So, and all they did was they say one thing and they did another, and I'm just happy of the outcome.
Well, you're smart move to file a lawsuit against him because, indeed, you prevailed. So congratulations. Good for you.
Thank you.
All right, let's see what the judges say.
For a judge, it's like a happy surprise. It's like you found something special that you didn't know anything about in the middle of a case when you realize this case has already been settled effectively, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that nobody mentions it in the complaint or the answer.
Right.
And they were protecting themselves because they wanted to get the prorated share of the rent for August, and then they put in a clause in there if he didn't pay it, by X date, which was kind of early, they would get the whole month of August.
Right.
All that was in there. And then they wrote paid because he paid it. He did his part to uphold the agreement. And then they were just flying right in the face of it.
Right. Have you ever stayed in a place, a cabin or a place out in the woods where the water smelled like rotten eggs?
We were in a hotel in Utah, remember? And then the water had such a consistency that you never felt clean. It felt like the water was slimy.
When the water's really hard, it's like the soap doesn't lather up.
Soap
you can't seem to get clean.
Nothing works right.
Shampoo doesn't lather, etc. Right, but you can drink that water. I mean, when I was a kid, I had friends who had well water that smelled like that, and we drank it, you washed in it, etc.
I'm amazed at the stuff you did when you were a kid.
Honestly, it didn't smell great.
Running around like a pack of wolves.
But there was nothing wrong with it, so we survived it.
So Belinda wants to know this. Hey, Harvey, I have an invisible fence for my dogs, but if my dogs are in my yard and someone walks by with a leashed or unleashed dog and they come onto my property and there's a dog fight, can I sue them for damages? I think you got a problem, Belinda, because if the dogs are coming on the property, then it's not properly enclosed, and I think you got a problem.